On today's episode, I'm talking with Bria Martin, the VP of Organizational Strategy and Culture at Ultragenyx. And we're talking about the rhythm and the combination between soul and fire to build congruence in leadership and culture and create organizations that set the temperature and breathe oxygen into their people. Stay tuned and I'll share more. Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everybody, it's Jason and welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. I am so glad you are here. If you're one of the OGs that have been with us from the very beginning, then you know we're in season 10, which means we have 335 episodes or something crazy like that. So glad that if you've been a part of us from the very beginning, that this continues to add value to your life and your work. If you're new to the podcast, then welcome in. So glad. Again, 335 episodes. So all you got to do is Google my name, Jason Barger, and whatever you're looking for as it relates to leadership, culture, emotional intelligence, accountability, trust, community, whatever it is you're looking for. And chances are you're going to find something that hopefully resonates with you. You're also, and today's episode will be another one of these, you'll also stumble upon some great, amazing conversations that I've been lucky to have with some friends and colleagues and thought leaders from around the world. And that's awesome. So you check those out. I'll throw a little quick shout out also to all of you, because you know that every time I go to record one of these, the purpose of it is to hopefully give you a chance to step back in your own life, to have some good oxygen breathed into you, and to help you think about that temperature that you're trying to set in your life and your work. I will share with you that most recently we just received an acknowledgement from Million Podcasts, the organization that looks at podcasts around the world, and just recognized us as a top 70 in the U.S. podcast for authentic leadership and culture. And we came in at number 13, lucky number 13 and so I'm sharing that with you because the word authentic is in there. And anytime we're recognized for authenticity around leadership and culture, that's a huge celebration to all of us and anybody that's been a part of this. So thanks again for being a part of today's conversation in the spirit of authenticity and continue to help people find this in more ways. If you'll subscribe, if you haven't done that, if you'll rate it 5 stars, of course, leave an authentic review, not AI chatbot, but an authentic review on whatever platform you're on so that people can find it and see why things resonate with you. And then lastly, every time you share it, whether that's on social media or if there's an episode that resonates with you, share it with your team, your colleagues, say, hey, this is something we ought to be thinking about, and let's listen to it and talk about what it means for us and the type of leaders and the culture that we're trying to create together. So thanks to everybody that does that. I am very excited to invite my guest for today in today's chat in just a minute. Bria Martin is an organizational culture leader, speaker, and the creator of the Soulfire Leadership Framework, a model that integrates the soul qualities we often leave at the door: compassion, intuition, humanity, with the fire that drives results. For years in management consulting, she operated in fire-only mode: achievement as identity, hustle as oxygen, burnout as a familiar visitor. A single wake-up call changed everything. She realized her fire was overdeveloped and her soul was underused. Once she learned to lead with both, everything shifted. More ease, more impact, more presence for her family and her work. Now she helps leaders and organizations build cultures where humanity and high performance thrive together. She is currently working as the Vice President of Organizational Strategy and Culture at Ultragenyx, a mission-driven rare disease biopharma company. I've been lucky to know Bria for many years now and first got to hire her as a college student. Shout out to the wonderful Camp Akita, and you've heard me reference that on this pod, and also her father, the great Reverend Dr. Richard A. Wing, who's been a positive influence in my voice. So great to reconnect. I've been watching Bria and the work that she's doing and the spirit of the work, and fun to just celebrate and share that in today's world. So welcome to the podcast, Bria.
Thank you, Jason. What a wonderful intro. And it really moved me to think that we've known each other for more than half of my life, which is crazy since I met you when I was in college. So It's actually incredible to reconnect with you in this way after all these years.
Absolutely. Well, I loved you then and I love you now. And I'm excited. It's been fun to watch the way that you've continued to grow and develop and also think about your own gifts, but also how to connect people and lead and culture and all that we're going to get into on the conversation today. But before that, and I'm going to challenge you on this, is tell me something you don't think I might know about you, or which we've
Mm.
known each other, so that's a challenge, but also something about you that the audience wouldn't know just about you as a human.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about this and I was like, actually, there is something you probably don't know. You know part of it, but you don't know all of it. So I am, when you look at all of my steps and half siblings, I'm the youngest of 11. And the youngest by 10 to almost like 25, 30 years. So my mom married someone who had five sons, and he was a little bit older than her. And then my father, there was a blended family with three stepsisters and two half brothers and myself. So, yeah. And so with that, I think it's been this, I call it like the family bush. But it's been this, growing up of just even at 21, getting new five step brothers and just really, getting to reconnect with a new family that I'd never met before. And that was just, they've been a beautiful part of my life. So most people don't know that about me, that when I say siblings, I'm like, yeah, youngest of 11. They go, what? But it needs some explaining to unpack that a bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to recall that, or at least what the number had been. So that's a good thing. We also again, Camp Akita was, and camp in some form is both kind of where we, I think, got to question a lot, got to think a lot, got to be challenged the way that we see the world, and also discover some things about ourselves. I'm wondering, just camp
Yeah.
in general, how that has shaped your life, how you would quickly describe that, and like, how does it still play in the way that you think today?
It's so funny you're asking me this question because I think I did a LinkedIn post on this probably about 6 months ago, and that time at Camp Akita, I was there for 3 summers. I know you did more summers there because you were running the thing.
Yep.
Those summers of being a camp director, I think, were some of the most influential of my life, because your job there was to create a positive, affirming environment for kids anywhere between third grade to senior in high school, and mostly with the middle school and high school group, where there's this very tender age, this very awkward age. And our job was to simply affirm them and create a safe space for them with whoever they were, whatever identity that they had, whatever they believed in, that they left feeling this was one of the best, most rewarding and affirming weeks of their lives. And to have a group of college students who are very, self-absorbed in our day-to-day lives, dedicate a summer, again, there were no devices, there was no alcohol, there was nothing, in this really sweet space. I saw so much of like the authenticity and the freedom come from these kids in the safe environment that we created. But I also saw it with the staff. Like, I found I was able to be more authentic, more free, more silly, more playful, because we created this container in this environment. And that is something I've taken away with me when I think about leadership and culture and creating these environments of play and trust and safety and belonging. What can happen from that? The fact that I was receiving letters, like even decades later, from kids from my cabin who remembered that one week that they had in my cabin and how it changed their lives, like, that stays with you. And so I think that a part of Akita is with me in my leadership, how I've designed company culture, how I parent. So I am forever grateful for those summers there.
Oh my gosh, me as well. Again, we could have a whole episode that would be dedicated to that, but and I think you touched on this, the community there of these college students that, again, I think we created an environment for college students that were working through what do they believe in, and who do they want to be in the world, and what does it mean
Yeah.
to truly be in community with each other and begin to find that authentic voice, but also for kids to create spaces where they start to learn, even how do you talk about things of meaning and of purpose
Yes.
and bigger things in their lives. And some of the most influential moments I know in my life certainly were associated with all the stuff that we did back then, but carries with me today. And I still, I think I'm always asking myself this question and thinking about the person that I'm trying to be today and that I'm aiming for today. And so you're on the Thermostat with Jason Barger podcast. So I need to ask you, because I ask all my guests,
Yes.
this is how would you describe the temperature that you're trying to set in your life and in your work right now? So, like, again, a
Yeah.
thermostat means we got to have clarity around the person that we're aiming to be, that, again, which none of us are perfect and never will be, but he or she who aims at nothing hits it every time. So being able to articulate, hey, this is the type of mom, this is the type of partner, this is the type of leader that I'm hoping to be in the world. How would you
Yeah.
articulate that for where you are?
Yeah, I love the idea of a thermostat. I always joke in my house. I like to have my house at like a nice, warm, balmy 74 degrees, because there's a warmth there. But when I think about it in my own life and my own work, my life is very full. I've got two young children. I've got two step kids in the one teenage, one in college. Um, my husband and I both work, have very full jobs. He has his own business, and an executive in a biopharma. So life is very full. And because of that, for us, like, it is so important to prioritize the most essential, which is family first and foremost. I'm unapologetically a mother first and foremost. And I'm always involved in the kids' school stuff as room parent or chaperoning field trips or, the fifth grade nature camp week. That's first and foremost, is that they feel that sense of connection, that they are, that there is, we have family dinner every night, that we're there at the sports games. So I think for me, like, that is the most important thing. Like, that keeps everything, that temperature is really important for me to really have that dialed in. And then I think the other thing is really with my work, as a leader in a company, as someone leading a team, and I'm modeling the way to be a leader in the company. I am the caregiver of the culture. I set that temperature and thermostat. So I'm tending to that as if it is a child, as if it's another, extension of my family. And sometimes that means, like, what do we have to do to reignite a little bit more fire, a little bit more excitement? What do we have to do to help people rest, refuel, take a breath, pause, because we're running so hard and so fast. So for me, and I notice for me that, we are, as leaders, the nervous system carriers in the organization, and our nervous systems, when we are using our tools, our practices. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I meditate and I journal and I write and I reflect and I get that calm space to get myself focused for the day so I can show up the way I want to be. I also go to bed really early at night because I know that everything I hold, I have to be well rested. It's taken years of all sorts of health issues to learn about the importance of sleep. But I think that it's just so important that when I do that, and when I get that time with my family, I can come into the office no matter what is going on, grounded, clear, and calm. And one of the greatest compliments I receive is, you calm my nervous system down. People come into my office feeling frenzied and they have a conversation with me, and I'm able to get them clear, aligned, focused, feel seen and heard. And they walk away knowing what they need to do, knowing how they need to be. And I think that that's one of the most important things as I think about the thermostat, that I am setting that for other people. And I'm doing it in my life with my kids, my family, and my husband. Our marriage is also a huge priority. That's the foundation. So we spend time to make sure we get away for a weekend, that we talk, that we connect, right? That it's so easy, I'm sure to get into a very transactional thing and logistical thing, because we are managing a lot, and then with our own careers. And so for us, we have to intentionally build in that connection time just to be and remember, oh, that's right. Like, you're my favorite person. You're like my favorite adult person. I love being with you. And that helps me, my nervous system. That nourishes my nervous system so I can show up the way I want to be. So those are some of the things, the way that what I think about sort of the thermostat in my life. But it is
Yep,
very full. As you've got three
totally.
children. It's
Yep.
full.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Life is full, and yet he or she who aims at nothing hits it every time. And so
Yeah.
to have some clarity on, well, what is that temperature that we're aiming to set? What type of husband am I trying to be? What type
Yeah.
of marriage, are we trying to have? What type of father am I hoping to be? And then how does the efforts and the things that drive me, what am I going to honor in terms of the type of work I do and how I
Yeah.
connect with people and what are the messages? And without any clarity on that, it's really easy to slip into thermometer thinking, which is that reactionary mode each day. And so what I heard you
Mhm.
saying is, not only have you have clarity around that temperature you're trying to set, but then of course we're always in the process of recalibrating it. And so the
Yes.
recalibration is, am I setting myself up? So do I know my bedtime? Do I know what it takes for me to set myself in a good frame of mind? And knowing the temperature we want to set is one thing, but then breathing oxygen into that each day so that you can show up in that way is a whole nother piece of the puzzle. And
Oh
it
my
sounds
gosh.
like, again, the intentionality of that and what you're bringing to your organization is awesome.
Yeah. No, it is. And I really love because it is intentionality. And I think of it as like every day, there's these moments in the day where even if it's the fullest of full days, that back to back day from the moment you wake up, you can still find that breath. Like, there's so much content that I want to listen to that I will never be able to fully consume. But I notice in that 20-minute drive to the office, the days that I go in, just listening to some calm music, that can be a
Yep.
reset for me to go in if I've had a little bit of a frantic morning, kind of getting things out. Same with decompression. Same with like, I'm going to get a hike in nature with my dog by myself without anything in my ears or any device, just to reset myself. And so it is like, it does take those intentional moments. And you and I both know there's some days where that intentional moment might be a minute of intentional breathing, but that minute of intentional breathing can give you what you need to sustain you for the rest of the day. So
No
I
doubt.
do really look at it as like, if there's a period of intense time, like we just had a really in 6 weeks of end of school year and stuff, this really intense period of time. And I was traveling for work and like there was so much. But I knew, okay, at the end of this, let's build in some time. So my husband and I are getting away for a weekend to like hibernate in this beautiful cabin and like,
Yep.
just have some time to relax and rest. If I know I have that coming, I can put those micro refuel moments in leading up to that to make sure that, I'm okay. But it still means I'm sleeping. I'm getting some exercise. I'm eating well. I'm taking care of myself because I can't do all the things I need to do if I am feeling burned out. And I lived too many years of my life that way. So I've learned, it took maybe a decade of doing that for me to learn that. But I'm like, no, I don't do that anymore because that doesn't serve me and all the things that I'm actually here to serve.
Yeah, and I think I know you've I'm going to come back to this in a second because I know
Yeah.
you've realized this and you've lived through the opposite of that, which taught you some lessons and said, oh wait, shoot, I'm doing too much of this and not enough of this. And the reality is that our performance suffers. And when I say performance,
Yeah.
by the way, again, I mean uh, when I'm not living in alignment with that temperature that I hope set, and again, not perfectly, none of us are, but when I am not breathing in good oxygen for myself, my performance suffers. And so that means, again, my performance, what I mean by that, again, is my performance as a father, like
Yeah.
being the type of father I want to be, being the husband, and certainly in our work, there's enormous data and research that will support when we are in greater alignment with that person we're aiming to be and are breathing in the good oxygen and putting ourselves in position to be, our performance is better.
Yeah.
And when it gets off, our performance suffers. And I know that you kind of came to, and you had a time in your life where you started to realize, man, I'm chasing some things that aren't maybe bringing out the best in me. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, it is. And I think, so much I was started management consulting. So, after being an amazing camp director, best job ever, and doing some youth director work and then actually giving too much to kids that I found myself burned out at the age of 23. And that was not good. So I said, okay, I may be too empathetic for this. I need to actually maybe not go into social work, but maybe do something else. So I found a boutique consultancy working with leadership and culture and strategy in this really incredible environment that I was going to get so much development. I was going to work on really cool things. And I felt a sense of purpose and connection to that. So skip ahead a few firms later, but I was raised in the world of former ex McKinsey Bain consultants where there was a always on, oversell, over deliver, outperform. And then you take that combined with it, I was already an overachieving people pleaser. So all I knew was overworking and giving above and beyond at all times, which worked well until I was pregnant with my son. I was also a stepmom of two young children. And I was still during my pregnancy, even though the doctor was like literally telling me, you cannot go you can't go down to, Silicon Valley for your clients every day and stay late at night and be up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I wasn't listening until they literally like, you cannot leave your house. Um, and even then, when I went into labor in the middle of the night, I am texting and sending emails at 3 o'clock in the morning to my clients. Like it was just, I was out of control. The nurse actually had to take the phone from my hands and said, nothing is more important than this moment right now, not this. And she put my phone to the side. And it was that powerful moment. And then my son was born and they put him in my arms. And, that moment that you have, you're like, oh, everything is different now. Like now there's something that matters more. And that way I was working is not going to work for the life I want to live for this human and for the mother that I want to be. So I spent maternity leave, and it was actually really crazy. My company got acquired when I was on maternity leave. So this little sweet boutique firm that's like, "Oh, Bria, we're not going to put you on the road. You don't have to travel for the first year. You'll be a nursing mom. Don't worry about it." And I found myself getting messages, "Hey, we're acquired. We're going to need you on the road right when you get back. We need you," like my first day back, leading, facilitating an 8-hour workshop. And I could just feel all of that instinct to overperform. I just felt another part of me go, "No more. We have new boundaries. We have a new life. We have new limits." And so I realized, said, well, what if I try to bring this part of myself that was really always been there, that compassion, that heart, that community, that love that was always there, that I put at the door when I came to work because I needed to be that like perfect consultant for everybody. What if I just brought that part with me and just saw what happened? And because it was all for this little baby, these, in my life, it was like, I kind of was like, no, I'm just doing this. I'm not going to ask for permission. I'm just going to do this. And so I found myself setting new boundaries around my time. I found myself not overworking things, but being more essential with things. And what was so interesting, Jason, was that my work got better. My clients were like, "Oh, I don't know what happened. You took this time away, but your work is better. It's more creative. It's more heart-centered." All the office drama, because everyone was so mad about this acquisition, I didn't get into it. Instead, I was that calming force that people could come to and talk to. And I also was like, I need to get home to be with my son. He's only up for a few hours. I want to go home. So I found a new way to be essential with my time, to be more connected and compassionate in the way I was showing up. And everything got better. And I was like, this is a new way of working, which I called soul. I brought my soul to my work to fuel the fire. And I was like, oh, it's not an either or. I'm going to do both. And I'm going to do it both with my parenting and my work. And it was one of the most important and influential choices I ever could have made for myself and my life.
Yeah. And again, I don't want this to get lost in translation, because this so much of what you just said, I love, and it's that your performance got better. It's,
Yes.
Again, we've been in organizational settings and just our own personal lives too, by the way. We've been, wrestling with this for years, and people thinking, especially in this country, this, I got to pull myself by my bootstraps and I got to outwork the competition. I'm in the first one in, the last to leave, all of the stuff that we support. And again, I don't want this to get lost in translation. Hard work is required for anything to be good at anything. And yet what gets missed in translation often is, but that doesn't mean our performance goes up when we actually are better rested. When we I'm able to be at my best, not when I'm just stacking things on top of each other, but when I'm able to be more intentional and bring my heart and my true presence to the work and to the people around me, my performance goes up. And just now do I believe, and I'm seeing in organizations us starting to recognize that and realizing that, Americans alone leave on average about 768 million days of vacation each year unused.
It's unbelievable.
It equates to about $66 billion of lost benefits that people just leave on the table because they don't think they can. And yet it perpetuates, and yet all the results say we'll be better for it. And so I know you talk about this kind of soul fire framework, and I think your experience of, say a little bit more about that connection between then the work of the soul and this fire together. But for now, let's pause, take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually, with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So, if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon.
Yeah. So when I think about soul, as I started to like play with this language, at first I called it connection and action, and some people might call it yin and yang. Some people would also use masculine, feminine, which I don't think is the right way to think about it. But I started realizing this is my soul. My soul is my compassion, my creativity, my connection, my sense of community, like this really nurturing part of me. And then my fire is like, I also have a lot of fire, my ambition, my, achievement, my acceleration, my accountability. And so it was just, I was like, it's this duality dance. I think of it as an infinity symbol, that you are in this constant fluid dance of bringing both, so that you can have a really candid conversation with someone about something really hard while grounding it with a ton of compassion for where they are in their lives, who they are, and what's going on for them. And it's the same thing of like, I can use all the insights and read all the things and all that knowledge I have up here, also with my intuition of my wisdom within me that like taps into my heart, taps into my gut, taps into like the wisdom in my body to go, there's something that feels off here. Let's look at this a little bit more. And so for me, it was like bringing both of those. Now, when I think of, soul fire, there's not this, I think this whole myth of like work-life balance, like I think we've blown that up. I like how you talk about it as a thermostat. I think of it as a rhythm. And I really started realizing there's kind of like 5 primary soul fire rhythms, right? There's the, high soul, high fire, which a lot of times is the way we operate. And it's really good, but it can't be sustainable all the time. You can't burn that bright without burning people out, or you have that really visionary leader who really cares and is pushing everyone really hard. And that is okay to a point, because then you need to give them time to rest and take a break, right? So I think that is a state you can be in, but it's a state, it's a rhythm that you can choose intentionally when it's needed. Then you have a lot of times, which I used to be operating in, it was like mostly more on the fire side, less on the soul, which again can serve a purpose for a really specific period of time, and has to be backed up with time to refuel on the soul side, which I would say is kind of your soul leading, right? It was a time when you need to give some more time for that. But also there's this other one, the low soul, low fire, which is a time when you are actually, there's 2 ways. You either end up there because you're burned out and you're like, I don't care anymore. I'm exhausted. I got no fire. I got nothing. Quiet quitting people like that, they kind of can end up there. So I think there's that one, that you land in that place, which is a cue that you probably need to do something different to get yourself back with your soul and fire in a healthier state. Or I like to intentionally choose it to say, okay, this is a day where I'm going to get some rest. I'm going to be, just have some good quality family time. I'm going to make sure I have time to read and reflect, right? I'm going to intentionally choose that, or like on vacation, things like that. So I think, and then there's this, like, ultimately you like to have periods of this soul fire fluid dance where you're choosing both and it feels fluid. But the way I see it is like in any given day or week, I'm like, I got to amplify the fire right now. What is that going to look like? And if I'm going to amplify the fire, how am I also going to support the soul so people don't feel like this is transactional and I'm just pushing, right? So it's I think of it as just this dance that I'm in. And because I've been at that dance for, about, over 10 years now, it feels very instinctual and fluid. So what I try to do is like break it down to like, how do you think of it? How are some practices? How do you keep that in a sustained state? Because it's not intuitive to a lot of people. And let's be honest, Jason, we know that it's counter to what a lot of corporate culture and capitalistic societies would say that we're supposed to do. And now you bring AI on the scene and it's like productivity through the roof at the cost of humans, right? And so I think there is this, for me, I found this is where I'm even doubling down on it more, because the noise has been amplified on the fire side in a way that I think is hurting us. So I think that this is a time now to be really, really conscious of the soul side and bringing that.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I love the imagery, and I love the language behind it too, and I think what's my listeners will some of these themes will be really resonate with them. They'll remember that. But I did a whole podcast around this idea of work-life rhythm instead of work-life balance. That language I just think is so helpful, because I'd say to teams and organizations all the time that the concept of balance is not, it's not even fair. It's in fact, I think it's ridiculous.
It's
we spend way more time at work than we do, in any other area of our life. So it's like, to think it's going to be balanced is not. I don't get balanced time with my kids. I get intentional time, and we have to
Yes.
seek it out. But I don't. It's not all equal, and so there's a
Yes.
rhythm to how we show up and a rhythm to the way we lead our lives and our work. And as we become more intentional about that rhythm, again, performance goes up. And so
Yes.
what I also hear in this, and again, listeners, you'll cue into this, but what you're talking about is also the congruence between your words, your actions, the soul and the fire, that it has to also be there's got to be congruence, which means that it can't all be one or the other. But when you're
Yeah.
at your best, there's a combination of both. And
Hmm.
finding intentional time in there. You also referenced that right now that this is a bit countercultural. And what are some of the trends that you're seeing? I've certainly got mine of what I'm seeing across organizations, and not only from data and research, but from I'm fortunate to be inside the walls of many different places and across industries. But what are some of the trends that you're seeing in organizational life as it relates to developing people and culture?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think so. One of the first ones I would say is, let's just at a biggest macro level, there's a lot of suffering in the world right now. There's a lot of human suffering at some of the most fundamental, foundational places of security and safety. And so that absolutely influences people in company cultures, right? If it directly or indirectly, or even just being in an environment where there is so much human suffering impacts them in some way. So I think that the human suffering is amplified, and that phrase hurt people. Some people have ways of processing their suffering where they are going to heal from it. They're going to look at it. Okay, I've noticed I'm hurting here. What can I do? How can I tend to that? A lot of people with their suffering, they are going to perpetuate it more for themselves. They get stuck in it, or they double down in the suffering, or they take it out on others, right? Or it's a combination of both, right? So I think right now there is, at a macro level, this lack of awareness of suffering, how it's impacting them, and the lack of skillfulness in what to do with that suffering. And I really do think you're on a path of healing or your path of suffering. And unfortunately, I think we have a lot of people who are not on that path of healing, who are doubling down on their suffering. So I think that at a macro level influences people, and they show up in work. So I try to bring a really grounded in that reality of whatever's going on or what people might complain about. I'm like, okay, let's just understand this is the broader container that's influencing people and impacting people. Like, some people are maybe working in like high conflict areas, right? That's going to impact them. If they're hearing literal bombs going off at night, their nervous systems are rocked. Let's have some compassion for what's going on for them. And, so just it's kind of bringing that. So I think that's one thing. I think the second thing, like, of course, AI, right? And so I think that AI, and I'm actually leading a lot of the AI stuff. I've actually really got involved in that 2 years ago, because right away I was like, this is not a tech thing. This is a people thing. This is a transforming the way we work thing. And this will be probably the most transformational thing we have in the way we work. And my gosh, I want to do it in the most conscious way, ethical way, responsible way that elevates humanity, because I can see where it can elevate humanity. I also can see where it can harm humanity. And I see myself as a leader responsible for being one of the people that's helping to consciously usher it in a direction to helping humanity. So wherever I can in my personal life and in my work, I want to be able to do that. So I think with AI, the conversations are not happening enough around this is a people thing, this is a culture thing, this is transforming the way we work. I see everyone jumping into the race, and I see a lot of companies getting burned by that. Of like, MIT did a recent study, 95% of the AI investments, people are not getting the ROI from it. And there's like, what have we done? And all these people that they laid off, they're now trying to hire back. I think this is a time to be more opportunistic adopters when it comes to AI, to listen, to learn, but really understand where in our company can this support our people, make their work better, help them actually focus on those human things that they do, which sort of leads me to my third thing, which is this is the time to double down on connection, like relationship building, trust, creativity, innovation, those uniquely human skills. Also, discernment, I think, is probably one of the most important skills we need to be teaching people, because with AI, it's so easy to offload so much to it. And then you see what it can do, and people can go, well, that sounds good. I'm going to just copy paste that. and needing that discernment to say, no, 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 let me hold on to my cognitive thinking, my superpowers. How can it be a copy editor for me, but not offload my thinking? So it's really that discernment of when you use it, when you don't use it, and remaining, that ownership and agency over your unique cognitive skills, I think is really important. And I think there is so much, as you know, with change and uncertainty comes fear, comes complexity, and humans have a hard time navigating that. That's why we've tried to teach it in so many different ways, and workshops and leadership and the work you do and the work I do. So I think it's also just reminding people this is another one of those things, and we've seen them time and time again. And how do we as leaders want to show up to lead and navigate this change so our people feel seen and heard, they feel valued, they feel supported? We can say, this is where we're going. We don't maybe have all the answers, but here's how we're going to figure it out. And you can count on me to always listen, to let you know what I know, and to be on this journey with you as we figure this out. I think this is when we need leaders showing up more than ever as leaders with that soul and those skills. And I think a lot of leaders are succumbing to the fear and uncertainty themselves and not actually taking it upon themselves to be the leaders of change.
Yeah, no doubt. I see so much of what you just described, and I, we're living and working right now in such a low trusting environment, a low engaged environment. Gallup just tells us that employee engagement just hit a 10-year low just recently. We know that Gallup also tells us that only 23% of employees right now trust their leaders and the future direction that their organization is going. Only 20% of employees say they feel connected to their organizational culture, and yet 90% of them say that's exactly what I want. So we're living and working in this very low trusting, low engaged environment, and yet what our people are saying, our humans are saying, is I want to better trust my people. I want to be connected to not just what we do, but how we do it. I want my mind and my heart to be engaged in what it is that we're trying, the mission of what we're trying to do together here. Yeah. And oh, by the way, when I am, my performance goes up by at least about a 22% is what the research would say. So the massive opportunity that I see is for us to be not only as human beings, which is first and foremost what is most important, but when we think about building cultures and shaping organizations, it's helping to build that authentic relationship and connection with people, even in the midst of unbelievable technological advances that we've got to leverage and figure out ways. But what people are saying is if we can raise the level of trust, and that this, I see congruence in what we say we're about and what we actually do, our performance actually goes up. And then we become countercultural in the way that we operate as a culture.
It's so true. And you're right, because I think so much, and we live in an era where it's hard to believe what you see. Thank you, deep fakes, or hear also. And so I think when we can show up, and I would say so many companies, I know we're in the hybrid remote work world, we're all in it. COVID happened and it's not going back. But whenever teams can prioritize face-to-face real-time connection, there's also just that human, like that congruence is a felt thing. And it's felt even more deeper when you are face-to-face with someone, looking at them, breaking bread with them. And I recently was a couple of weeks ago in Boston with one of our leadership teams doing an offsite with them. And just going to a Red Sox game and sitting there and laughing and connecting, and even just walking. It was a beautiful Boston night, and walking with colleagues and connecting, that did as much for the trust, if not more, than sitting in a room having business conversations.
For sure.
Right. And so those are the things I think that are just so important that I think we can easily take for granted. But I find that for me, like, I'm always wanting to yes, this is your work self. And we can talk about work all we want, but like, who are you? What do you care about? And I build connection activities into everything that I do, where you actually kind of get real with people to start talking about that, because you notice the moment you do that, that person on the other side of the email, you're like, oh, wait, you just told me about the most influential person in your life. And it was this really touching story. And I can relate to that in my own life. And that thing I was triggered about just kind of goes away. And now to work through that thing, I have a different way I'm going to work through it with you, from a place of connection, compassion, shared humanity. And I think it's this thing as leaders, we need to be modeling that. And also, as a leader with my team, and something's hard, I don't come in like sunshine and roses. I let them, I let them see my vulnerability. I let them see when something is hard and that we're in this together. And you can always count on me to be honest with you about what's going on and to be here and to listen. And I think that goes such a long way right now in these types of environments. So yeah, I think there's so much as leaders we think our job is the doing, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot that we have to do,
No doubt.
a lot. But our being, this is the time for our being needs to be just as important, and how we're showing up and how we're being present and how we're listening. Because even just sitting and listening, fully listening to someone can go such a long way for them and feeling connected and valued. And also, again, calming their own nervous systems down.
Yeah, Marcus Mumford from Mumford and Sons would say,
Yes.
I love this language. He said, there's power in congregation. And
Yes.
there's power in us congregating. There's
Yeah.
power in us. So when you went to Boston with your team, when you go out, there's to again, we live in a remote world, and again, you and I are doing this remotely, and this is awesome, and I'm so happy that we can do this, and technology exists that we can do this and have this great conversation, and yet there's a time when you need to break bread together and you need to be in the same
Yes.
space together. And there's power in congregating. And so often in teams and organizations, when I hear them and we're talking and they're saying they're struggling about a particular issue, or there's a misalignment with something, or performance is suffering, they say, well, when was the last time you congregated? We got together and let's really get real with it. And oh,
Yes.
well, we don't have time to do that. And well, you better get in the business of caring about it, because when you do, your performance goes up. And so we've got to
Yeah.
be better about saying, how do we, again, find the rhythm of executing in our work and making sure our communication and our connection within the team helps us be better at what we do, and more importantly, who we are in the world. That
Yeah.
connection helps make us better.
And the thing I try to tell people when they're like, oh, why would we do this? And I'm also like, just trust me. It feels better. It will feel better for you. The work will get better. Your team will feel better. They'll be more engaged. They're going to put more of their heart and soul into the work.
Yep.
You said performance, like everything gets better. But I do think for some people, they're so hardwired in a different way of working,
Yep.
that it's so counter to that, and it is a big shift for them, which is again why you do what you do, and I do. We teach it. We have to
Yep.
teach it and break it down into the steps. My friend who's an expert in AI at Stanford and MIT and does a lot of speaking around this. We geek out on AI all the time, and one of the things she said, and I loved it, is that the opportunity right now is for us to find a different type of productivity, not the industrial era productivity. How much when we extract from people. We have an opportunity now to find more joyful productivity, that
Yep.
getting things done feels better, that you've offloaded some things to AI so you can be more present in other things that rejuvenate you, that ignite you more. And I love this aspiration for this new type of joyful productivity. What does that mean for leaders who are in the Gallup and all the results on leaders? Leaders are so burned and fried, like COVID annihilated them. And now AI, I mean, leaders are like leaving for health and wellness and well-being. Like, I'm done, I've tapped out. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. So if we can create a way for leaders to find that fuel within themselves, to reset, they're again thermostat, or find a new soul fire rhythm for themselves, they can actually show up in the world in a way that I think is going to feel better for them and give them more of that energy, and just that fulfillment, right? So I do think there is a different way, but you have to get people to actually take the accountability for trying on a new way and being
Yeah,
willing to
and
do it.
and again, I think we're learning this, and I think again, none of us are perfect. None of us have it all figured out. No
No,
organization. I'm yet to find the perfect organization, but what I
no, they
do
don't
find,
exist.
no, but the best are the most intentional ones, and the teams and the organizations that are saying, again, let's make sure we're clear on how are we hoping to move throughout all of the obstacles and challenges we're going to face? What is our commitment to each other? And what does that look like from me in action and behavior? And what does that look like from you? And how do we begin to, again, along the way, we're going to have to breathe oxygen into ourselves, and we're going to have to calibrate the thermostat along the way. But if we're committed to doing that, we will not only care for each other, but and we'll care about how we do what we do, and oh, by the way, what we end up doing will become better.
Yeah.
And that is just an intentionality and a commitment to bringing both your fire and your soul together, I would say.
Yeah. No, it really is. And I can share with, with my own organization. I mean, our engagement scores, over the last, 9 years of when we actually ask that question of like, individual, my belief in our company vision, mission, purpose, which,
Yep.
for us as a rare disease company, like it is a very, very purpose driven, very mission driven of trying to help as many rare disease patients as possible for on diseases where there is no treatment. No one
Yep.
is helping these kids and these families. Has that result, which we usually get above 90% for our engagement results response rate. So it's a good sample size
Yeah,
there.
that's big.
That rate is usually in the average of 95%. And what has enabled us to do, because people believe in what we're doing, they care about what they're doing, they see them as part of something bigger, a bigger mission and purpose that could change lives in a positive way. It's enabled us to weather so many storms and changes, external things we can't control. It's allowed us to be able to have people say, okay, this is hard, but I'm focused on this. And I still feel a belief in that.
Yep.
And keep retention high when a lot of companies were seeing retention just getting
No
annihilated.
doubt.
So
Yep.
those things matter. And it's not, and that means everything's perfect. It doesn't mean that everything's hunky dory all the time, but it means that the people are there feeling connected to something bigger and choosing to be there.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, it's first and foremost as a care for people. And then secondly, I'm asked this all the time. Well, what's the ROI? What's a return on investment of all this development of people and culture stuff? And I say, well, if you want the simple answer, massive.
Yeah.
The organizations that I'm working with and have been fortunate to support over the years, what's the return on investment of developing people and culture? Massive. Just with an organization just recently where we dropped their turnover over the course of a few year period from 15% down to 7%. Cut their turnover in more than half, right? Then they've had in the last few years, they've had the highest attraction rate in the history of their company. More and more people that want to be a part of their culture.
Yeah.
And then what does that mean in terms of, okay, the more that they're engaged, to about a 22% higher. And so you start adding all this stuff up.
Yes.
And if what you're asking is what's the economic impact? Massive. And so not only is it the right thing for humans, but it's the best thing for our organizations when we're saying the temperature we're trying to set and the things that we're going to choose to breathe oxygen in to, and we're going to be intentional about the way we bring our fire and our soul together to create this. If we're serious about that and we're consistent, it leads to higher performance.
It does. It does, time and time again. And and I always love when you have those people like quantify for me. I'm like, okay, well, we can break it down into the time to fill and the cost of that, and someone leaving, and all that, and the burnout, and the people having to go on leaves because they're so stressed out and their health is so bad. Like, you can quantify that, right? It's massive, right? And so, and I think it's one of these things that I think there's enough data information out there for people to know this. To be like, we're not saying something crazy here. It's proven out there, and yet. All it takes is something like AI or something new change, and everyone goes to these these really unproductive behaviors and patterns that don't care for people and the humanity of the people who are actually the people doing the work, right? And so,
that's right.
So that's why I do think we're in a really very special, specific time right now where we have to keep reminding people of everything we've been talking about here today.
No doubt. And I could talk about this forever, but I know that we're going for our listeners' sake, we're gonna land the plane here. I always like to end. Is there any question that you have of me? Every time I do one of these, I'm always the one asking the questions, and every guest I have, we leave a second for what is a question you would ask me, Bria?
I love that. I have so many, but the one that's sitting with me right now, because I used to be on your side with working with a lot of clients, and now I've been in house. I would love to hear from you with all the clients you're working on right now, the last few years. What are you seeing that gives you hope that we're creating the workplaces that you would be proud for your kids to be a part of?
Oh, I love it. Thank you for asking that. I am fortunate that if I'm working and I have been asked to collaborate with an organization, that means they are already beginning to think this way, and they recognize that culture is not an add-on. It's an everything that we do. And so in that, again, no place is perfect, but the organizations that I've been fortunate to be supporting over the last however many years, and now I've been doing this for 17 years, but the ones that we've had these kind of ongoing relationships with, that they are honoring how we develop our people. And in alignment with this, we don't want our posters to just be on the wall that this is what we say, but we want our posters to be in our people. We want to be authentically showing up, not perfectly, but in alignment with this type of organization. And we're going to be consistent and committed to bringing people together to calibrate that thermostat and continue to then say, what do we need to do to be breathing oxygen into the individuals? And what do we need to do collectively as an organization to keep this, the culture of how we do it, alive? And in those organizations that are committed to that, which gives me hope for the future, is the level of trust is going up. The retention of the best people is going up. The attraction of, again, more people, and the economic impact then on the organizations is they are flat out a better organization because of it. And so I take great hope in the fact and realizing that more and more people are realizing that connection, that the stuff we're talking about isn't just, oh yeah, once we're done with the business stuff, we'll get to this, that more and more places realize, no, this is in everything that we do, and the impact follows.
Beautiful. Oh, so glad to hear that. Yeah.
Well, I am so glad to get to reconnect with you, Bria, and I am proud of you, and I'm also celebrate the work that you're doing and love the language that you're bringing and thinking about this and the impact that you're making on other people in the world. And so I thank you for that and for being on the pod today is really awesome.
Thank you. It's so wonderful reconnecting with you and being here with you. And I love how the synchronicity of our lives and how summer camp counselor director is now turned into this. I think it's really quite beautiful, and it makes me very happy that we got to spend that time together and that we've taken a piece of that into the work we do today.
Love it. Shout out to everybody who was a part of that journey or anywhere along the way. It's so awesome. And Bria, thank you. And thanks to listeners out there. I hope today's, by the way, in the show notes, I'll put in some more information if you want to track down Bria and make sure that you are connected to that work. We'll make sure that we put some things in the show notes on how to do that. I'll just say, I hope today's conversation, I know it did to me, breathed a little oxygen into you, got you thinking about that temperature that you hope to set in your life and your work. And hopefully that rhythm of the fire and the soul in your life, and the fact that it leads to better outcomes. And when we say outcomes and performance, I'm not just talking business metrics, although it does that too. And I can back that all up if you want to talk more about it. But what does it mean to be a parent or a friend or a spouse, or our performance gets better when we're in congruence with the things we say and the things that we do. So thanks for everybody for listening, and I hope today's episode got you thinking in that way. Again, I'll remind you to rate the podcast 5 stars, of course, wherever platform you're on, to leave an authentic review in your own words, to share it if it's meaningful with the people around in your life, because hopefully messages like this get amplified and help the future of work in all the ways that we're aiming for. So lastly, I'll just remind you to step back, remember, be a thermostat, and breathe good oxygen. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.